Welcome to Travel Matters, the official podcast of TBEX. Here are your hosts, the radio vagabond Palle Bo and TBEX CEO Rick Calvert.
Welcome to another episode of Travel Matters, and again, it's with interviews that you, Rick, recorded in Lafayette.
Yep, we got a bunch of them for you, Palle.
Yeah, and I wasn't able to be there because I was in Armenia, but now we're almost ready for TBEX Thailand that kicks off tomorrow.
Pre-BEX trips are actually going on today, yesterday and today, in and around Phuket, and then tomorrow is the main conference kicks off.
And tonight is the big opening party. So
tonight's the big opening party.
If people are downloading this, remember get there and let's have a great opening party as always
at the Aquaria Phuket from 6:30 to 9:30. And the buses leave at 6 o'clock.
Alrighty, but today we have we have two other interviews that you recorded, and the first one is with Vivian from Trova Trips.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. This was another first-time TBEX exhibitor, and Trova Trip, we'll get into this in the interview, but they allow creators to sell their own trips without having to plan the trip and collect the money and do all the other stuff. It's really cool. And it was a great conversation with Vivian.
Right. Let's hear Rick's interview with Vivian from Trova Trip.
Okay. We're back at TBEX Lafayette, and our guest this morning is Vivian with Trova Trip. And this is your first time at TBEX?
Yeah, this is our very first TBEX, and we're really excited to be here.
Awesome. And I just heard a little bit about you guys yesterday from attendees, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you offer trips that content creators, influencers, bloggers can host. But basically, you guys do all the work behind the scenes. You do the sourcing, you handle all the payments, you develop the itineraries, all those things. You guys do that stuff.
Yes. So, yeah, we allow content creators to host trips with their audience without doing any of the extremely unfun things like contacting operators, like you said, like sourcing activities, buses, accommodations. So we kind of like take all of that off of their plate so that they can focus on doing what they love to do, like being present with their travelers, not having to worry about like, oh man, coordinating the bus coming for the next activity. And because that really kind of like removes you from the experience when you're, handling everything that's on the ground. So we do all of the pre-trip planning for them, as well as when you're on the ground as well. All of the hosts have a local tour guide that's with them the whole time, and they're responsible for, taking care of all of the on-site logistics. So picking everyone up from the airport, between activities, keeping head count, emergency case scenarios, and then also like they're usually like the best part of the trip because they're local guides. They'll tell you like all the best hole in the walls, like they're so friendly. Like typically we get reviews back from the trip, and it's like, oh my God, like our guide was the best part. Like I run some foodie trips in Peru, for example, and my host H Wu, he came back and he was like, I didn't know like our guide was actually like a food science major, so he told us like all these fun things, and they had like a pisco making like cocktail course, things like that. So really like they have a guide the whole time, so they don't really feel like they're also not getting like thrown into a country with like 20 audience members that they don't know, and then being responsible for them is quite a big ask. So making sure that the pre-planning experience as well as the on-the-ground experience is like very seamless and like easy for them to do. Yeah,
so the guests get a good experience, an organized experience, and the host is not stressed out, like you said, about making sure people are showing up to the bus on time,
right?
Making sure the restaurant reservations are made, making sure when they show up to go on the boat trip that the boat's ready to go.
Exactly.
All of those, you guys handle all of that stuff.
Yes.
And we didn't talk about that before, but it's good to hear that you also have a guide on site with your host.
Yes.
So again, when things do go wrong, because we're traveling, things happen.
Right.
The tour guide takes care of it.
Yes, exactly.
And the host just focuses on that, being a host and enjoying a trip with their guests.
Exactly.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And like we also, it's like the way that we like to pace our trips as well, like the way that we design them. It's like, I think like historically the worst thing about group travel is getting herded around every single second of the day as well. So the way that we design our trips is that there are set activities for you. Like there's usually around like 2 to 5 hours of activities, but then we try to leave like an afternoon free or an evening free or a morning free so that, you know, you did travel all the way over there as travelers. Like you want to go explore on your own, like have a little bit of a hybrid of like a set schedule and also like free time to explore where you want to go, activities, restaurants, things like that as well.
When you're traveling with a host as a consumer, you're obviously going to have common interests. So the trip's kind of developed around that.
Exactly.
But all of us have, when we get on the ground, we see things that we didn't expect, that you might want to go back to a place, or you heard about a place you want to go see that not everybody in the group wants to do. So you leave that free time for them.
Yeah, exactly. And also like gives the host a little bit of a break as well. It's nice to like, you know, it is fun to traveling, but it's exhausting. And like, I think as a host also like feeling that you need to be like on all the time.
Yeah, responsible
also,
for the group's happiness and having a good time.
Right. And kind of like, you know, talking to like what you're mentioning about like people that have like a shared commonality. I think that's what makes these trips like kind of like unique, because like especially like with the content creator, the host involved, is because like sometimes you book these group trips and you're like, it's kind of a grab bag of people like you don't really know. But with this, like they're foodies, they love food, or they're all like outdoor enthusiasts, so they love to hike, things like that, and they like have these commonalities with the host. And then like I think what we've seen this year, so like last year, I think we ran like, obviously through COVID, only like backpacking, camping trips outside. I think we only ran like 30 trips. And this year alone, I think this month we're up to 260 trips this year that we've completed. And like the best part about these trips is like seeing everyone have such a good time and like forming these like really like lasting relationships. Like we see people like going to each other's weddings like 8 months down the road. Lots of matching tattoos on our trips, which is like terrifying and exciting, because like
it's a trial by fire traveling with someone.
Exactly. They're like
you bond
at the
pretty
end.
Fast.
Exactly. They're like crying at the airport because they're like, oh my God, like I can't believe we have to like not see each other anymore, or like, but then they like fly and they go end up traveling together somewhere else. So it's quite nice to see these like friendships like be created because they're like traveling, you know, with the host. And I think that's the most rewarding part for them too.
How long has Trova Trip been around?
Yeah, so we've been around since 2017. And obviously like we've, as with everyone, like during the pandemic, like
COVID sucked,
Yeah, COVID sucked a lot.
Yeah.
But we actually we grew quite a bit during the pandemic as well, because we were, like I mentioned.
By the way, sorry to interrupt, but COVID is a perfect example of the value you guys add when people are canceling trips, postponing trips. As a host, to be responsible for that, unless that's your job, that had to be an absolute. For all of us, it was already a nightmare having to cancel trips. Imagine as a creator having to be responsible for 8 or 10 or 15 people not being able to go to Thailand or Hawaii or wherever.
Yeah.
And you guys obviously had to take care of all that stuff.
Yeah, so we have a wonderful customer service team that has extremely thick skin as well. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like we all hate canceling trips or rescheduling. We did a lot of rescheduling during COVID, but our customer service team handles all of the customer service, like payments, questions, rescheduling, cancellations, things like that. So, you know, obviously the host will still get a few DMs, things like that, but we try to take all of that load off of them as well, so they have not only access to the planning, but also our customer service team, and then like we process like all of the payments as well. And
I know you mentioned you do some other verticals as well, but working with creators, is a main focus for what you do at Trova Trip?
Yeah, so that's kind of our bread and butter right now. We also work with like some small businesses like 10X Travel, they're a travel publication. But yeah, we mostly focus on, we mostly work with content creators, YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagram, they usually have like, they're across multiple platforms, which is also great because like it really like targets like different parts of their audience in order to really like successfully sell all the spots on their trips.
Okay, so the big question is, everybody here will want to know, how do I as the host make money in working with you guys? Yeah,
so I think like what we do is like we offer, and like I think really like successful like content creators, they're really like, they're small businesses and they're always looking to like look for different revenue streams, things like that. And that's like something that that's what we are for them, like an additional income stream that allows them to monetize their audience. So essentially like what happens is we partner with these operators. So say we do land on like a 7-day trip in Thailand, depending on like the dates, time of year, activities, workshops, they price that itinerary out in the host portal, as we call it. And then the host is able to look at that cost per traveler and like be in control of their own earnings. So decide whatever margin they want to put on per person. And then within the host portal, you'll be able to play around with the pricing and see exactly how much you're making at each group size. So that, you're seeing exactly what your projected earnings are. Depending on the destination, typically you need a minimum of 8 to 10 people. And then we'll normally cap between 20 to 24. And I know we were discussing like more intimate trips, things like that. So lots of like room to play around with that margin if you want. And like sometimes like it's not all about earnings. What we've seen, like you're making a portion of that money off of, per person, but we've seen lots of creative things from our hosts. So they bring on additional partnerships as well onto their trip. So, for example, like Brooke Wilson, she's an Eddie Bauer ambassador. When she went to Patagonia, she kind of brought on like Eddie Bauer as a sponsor. Like they fitted her whole crew with free jackets. They created a bunch of content for Eddie Bauer. So obviously it's like something that you can't really like, you're really offering the brands that you're working with, like something different, because it's like 12 like women like hiking through Patagonia, and it's like just an amazing visual. And like you really like, a lot of the hosts have a lot more like leveraging power as well when they're negotiating with these brands, their sponsorship deals. And we see like chefs that bring on like knives, like cutting boards, or like yogis that partner with like yoga mat companies, or like sports bras, or leggings and things like that. Or even like, doesn't have to be extremely involved like that, like a full-on brand partnership, but a lot of times like these hosts have such good relationships with their sponsors that they're like, I'm putting together a goodie bag as at the welcome dinner, if you want to throw in something, I think it would be amazing. And then they usually kind of sit on stories or YouTube and they do a little bit like a haul video of these goodie bags. So it's a nice way to showcase your sponsors that you're already working with, have like long-standing relationships with. And yeah, it's really fun to kind of see like creative ways in which our hosts like maximize their income on these trips with their existing sponsors as well.
The two key things that I heard there. Number one is the host gets to choose how much they make per attendee on the trip.
Yes.
They set that price, whatever it is. So basically you have a markup, say the trip costs $1,500 and the host wants to make $500 per person, they make the price $2,000.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, as you said, there are other creative things they can do that could either generate revenue or just make the experience better, or maybe they generate revenue in a separate way, like you said, through working through a sponsor like Eddie Bauer or whoever it may be, where the sponsor pays for that opportunity to provide stuff to people on the trip. So, or again, it could be affiliate marketing or anything like that, where, hey, you're going on this trip, you want to buy this thing to be prepared. Here's my suggested list of things you need to bring with you.
Right.
Yeah. There's all sorts of things that a host could do.
Yeah, exactly. And we send out like pre-trip prep docs to these to the travelers as well. Like, in Patagonia, it'll be this temperature during this time of year. Pack jackets, or maybe like pack swimsuits, and things like that. Get travel insurance.
Right. And by the way, here's a list of jackets I recommend, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
How many trips do you guys have available? What countries do you operate in?
Yeah, so we operate in 49 different countries. We are on every continent except Antarctica. could be interesting one day though. And then we have over 150 itineraries to choose from so far. And then basically like every quarter also we look at like different expansion destinations. So if there's like places that a lot of people are asking to go to, like we look at trends, in the travel space, like which countries are really, getting a lot of like tourism activity. I know like for a while there, like you couldn't open social media without seeing Bali or Iceland,
right?
Places like that. So at that point we were selling a lot of Bali trips, a lot of Iceland trips. And we kind of keep an eye out on that as well, so that we're really like expanding, having different itineraries, going to countries, really unique ones. Like we have new ones in Madagascar and Borneo and Mozambique. So those are.
So you're always adding new things.
Yes.
And another thing you mentioned before we started is you actually, the process of planning the trip at the very beginning, you allow your host to send a survey to their audience to see what they're interested in and where they want to go.
Exactly. I think that's, for us, one of the most important parts of the process. And it's not so much for us. Like, it's really, like, I like to explain it as like a litmus test for their audience. It's extremely difficult to plan a trip for yourself, let alone like, content creators have like 500,000 people. Like, where do you even start with all of those people? So, like, our survey tool is like a really nice way for them to ask all the right questions and begin planning. So, where do you want to go? How many days can you go for? What's the best time of year? What activities do you want to do? What's your budget? That way, when we're like looking through our portfolio of itineraries, we're able to also like analyze the data with them, where they can do it themselves via like logging into our host portal. They see all the responses coming in real time. We have like charts and graphs showing them like the breakdown of that data, so that when we have the discussion of like where do you want to go, or they're trying to make a decision about where they want to host their trip, they're really like crowdsourcing that information from their audience. And it's like really like a nice experience for the travelers as well, because it's not just like, hey, you can, go on this $3,500 trip to Iceland with me. It's more like, hey, like I get a lot of questions from you guys and I'm finally pulling the trigger. I would love to know like where you guys want to do a trip together.
Yeah.
Like let me know, so that I can really build something that works for the both of us. And I think like it's a really nice community building event from a lot of like what our hosts
Does the platform make a recommendation once you collect all that survey data? Will it say, hey, we think, again, Iceland or Florida are your two best choices?
Yeah, so we're definitely working on iterating to that point. We're actually in the middle of like redesigning our portal right now. It's very fun because like we are a tech platform ultimately, and we're like based on the feedback that we get from hosts and travelers, like we're always iterating and trying to make that recommendation process a little bit easier. So you can do the self-service route, as we say, and like kind of go through the data yourself. And then also like once you hit like 100 qualified responses, as we say, so you're over the age of 18, have a budget exceeding $2,000. If you hit that point, then you get a dedicated account manager that will also help you through the process as well, to make those recommendations. And I guess I didn't go into this a little bit earlier, but the survey responses are important because like ultimately, like we do want to set our hosts up for success, and like what the host wants to see from their survey responses is like a minimum of like 50 to 100 survey responses, so that they know that like this is an opportunity they should pursue, right? If they get like 10, 15 responses, like their audience just isn't ready for it right now, right? We've seen hosts that come back 6 months down the line and they survey again, and then they get hundreds of responses and they end up selling out their trips then. So it's like a really nice tool for the host to see, should I even like spend my time and energy planning this trip if like not that many people are interested right now? And then once you get up to like hundreds of qualified responses, like your account manager will really like sit with you at this point to like plan in like a strategic way. So we have hosts that like get 1,000 responses. What do you do with all of that? And then we start like pivoting from like selling one trip to like, all right, let's plan how many trips do you want to do this year? 4 or 5 trips? Let's figure out what that looks like so it's not exhausting for you. So let's maximize your time in Asia, right? Let's get you one trip to Thailand, give you a week break, and then you'll do your second trip in Vietnam. That way you're not doing these like long haul 30-hour flights over and over again.
Yeah.
And like, let's put you 3 weeks here. And then, you want to go to Africa? Let's put you, Madagascar. Let's do a South Africa trip, Mozambique.
So you help them logistically that way as well,
Right.
if they're going to do multiple trips.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have any minimum requirements on amount of followers or amount of traffic a creator has to have to inquire with you guys?
No, so we don't. And for us, what's important and what we've seen be important is not the number of followers that you have, but it's like the engagement and the community that content creator has. So, we've worked with people that have millions of followers, and we've worked with people that have like 10,000 followers, 20,000 followers, but they've successfully sold out like 10 trips because they are so actively engaged with their community. They're responding to all the comments. Like, they care about every single person that comments on, their content, things like that. And like, really, those are the content creators that are extremely successful on our platform. Obviously, like, numbers help, at one point.
Of course.
But it's not like selling any other product. It's not like, click this link to like book this thing, or like, it's selling an experience.
Another element to this that I'm thinking about right now is by hosting a trip. Let's say I'm a creator who's got 10,000 followers, 20,000, and I host a trip and I take 10 people. It seems to me that experience would help expand your audience. Once those 10 people come back and say, wow, I just had an amazing trip, blah, blah, blah. Do you see that with your hosts that you work with, that by them working with you, you actually help them expand their audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite people and hosts that I work with, her name is Jordan Smith. She's Jordo's World, but she is like a recipe developer and like an outdoor enthusiast. And she also used to be a guide. And she's really a cool case study, I think, because like, she started off with like, when we started working together last year, she probably had like 15, 23,000 followers, something like that. So, I mean, on the grand scale, kind of small, on the smaller end. Yep. And she, we're chatting and she's like, I didn't really think that this was an opportunity that was available to me at this point in my,
evolution.
Exactly. And so we started planning. She ended up selling out 4 trips that year because she, like I said, she's extremely engaged. She messages every traveler. She makes sure she puts them in like group chats, emails, threads, like right off the get-go when they book a spot with her. And I actually just checked this morning because I was showing another travel blogger like her account, and she has 75,000 followers now. So within a year, she grew that much. And that's because, like, she puts out great content, but also, like, part of, like, people follow her for these group trips now because she has, I think she's, at this point, has sold, like, 10 or 12 trips with us, completely sold out every single trip. She's going to Patagonia next year, doing, like, a hiking road trip through California. She's going to Colorado. So it's really cool to see, like, these people grow. We've become really good friends. Like, we give each other pep talks, things like that. And I'm just, like, really proud of, like, where she's at. And she sent me a message probably a few months ago, like, thank you guys so much. Like, I didn't think this could be like a part of my business. Like, at least at this point, I thought it was going to be maybe at least 6 or 7 years down the road before I can start hosting my own trips. And like, you guys really like pulled that forward for me. And like, I just appreciate everything you guys do. Yeah.
So if people are interested in working with you guys, where should they go?
They should go to trovatrip.com, and then create an account with us so that they can start browsing through our itineraries, grab their survey link, look through the portal, see what that has to offer, and it'll be under the tab like become a host, and there should be a really quick form field for you guys to create an account and start from there. So the sooner you start surveying, really the sooner you get to have a trip on the books, because for us, we plan 8 to 10 months out, and we have certain limitations with our operators. Like, we can only run 5 trips overlapping in the month of July. So, like, the sooner you get on surveying, planning, the sooner you get your preferred dates. So, yeah, create an account and hope to start planning trips.
Vivian from Trova Trip, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us, and hopefully we're going to be at many more TBEXs down the road.
Thank you.
You're listening to Travel Matters, the official podcast of TBEX, the home of travel media.
That was really interesting, Rick. You did some interesting conversations. I don't see you need me at the table for the next one, so...
Of course we need you there, Palle. It's not the same without you.
No, and we will be doing a lot of interviews in Thailand, and so if you see us with the microphones around in the whole networking area, come and say hi. And if you have a great story or something interesting to tell us, please come and tap us on the shoulder and ask if we want you featured on Travel Matters.
Yeah, please come and say hello, because this is the opportunity where we're there face to face, and logistically, you're the one who's doing all the hard work with the production. It's just much easier if we're all there in the same room together.
Exactly. And here's the other interview of this week. This is with Susan Melton from Janesville.
Susan Melton from Janesville, Wisconsin. And again, we talk about this a little bit in the interview. We commiserated during COVID the whole time. She had signed up to attend TBEX in Lafayette as a sponsor right before the COVID lockdowns happened. Mm-hmm. And then they happened, and she called me and said, Rick, is it really going to happen? And I'm like, I think so. This is March. It's not until October. I think we're fine. And no, we weren't fine, obviously. And so we spoke several times over the last couple of years about what's happening, how long is this going to go on for, what are we going to do? So we get into all that in the interview.
Okay, I can't wait to hear this. Here's Susan Melton talking to Rick.
We're back at TBEX Lafayette, and I'm joined with Susan Melton from Janesville, Wisconsin. Susan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm very happy for you to be here too, and it's so great to finally for us to meet in person.
Yes.
I think you signed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you signed up to attend TBEX 2 months before COVID happened. Something,
yes.
It was pretty close.
It was.
And,
yes.
We didn't expect it to go on for as long as it did. Mm-hmm. And we had to postpone our show that was going to be in Italy in March, but this show was going to be in October. We thought, this thing will be blown over by then.
Yes.
And you and I talked a few times, and
yes, I thought 2 weeks at the most.
Yes.
That was the original thought.
Yeah, and then every, a couple months go by, and then 4, 5, 6 months go by, and I remember
yes.
getting a call from you going, what are you guys going to do if
yes.
this thing doesn't end?
Yes, it was also up in the air. Every moment of life moving forward was up in the air. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was the same, even worse for someone trying to plan an event.
Yeah. Well, for all of us,
yes.
all of us in travel, I mentioned yesterday morning, we all went through things individually
yes.
with our own families, but collectively as an industry,
yes,
it's certainly the most traumatic thing in our lifetime to happen to the travel industry.
Yes.
9/11 was a very American-focused thing,
mm-hmm.
And of course that affects the rest of the world because of the size of our economy, but
yes.
COVID was truly worldwide for travel.
Yes, it was. And the word pivot was never more important than it was during that time.
Yeah, we heard that a bunch, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did, yes. And it was so important to be able to do that and support locally where we could. And that's what we focused on during that time, was just keeping our local businesses afloat the best that we could.
So I know you were surprised yesterday when we announced we were coming to Eau Claire, Wisconsin next year.
Yes. Well, actually, I had a little bird tell
you had
me.
A hint. Oh,
I
boy.
did. So, yes, very, very excited about it. And, we're right along that path where it'd be really easy to come to Janesville from Eau Claire.
How far is Janesville from Eau Claire?
It's just a couple hours. Yeah, not far at all. It's a little bit north of us, but easy access to where we're at because we're right off the interstate. So you go right from Eau Claire to Janesville or the reverse.
So I know we were talking before we started the podcast, and it looks like we'll do something with you guys. We'll have a trip of folks coming to Janesville kind of officially around the conference.
Yes, we can't wait.
Yeah, but of course, folks can drop in and see you before or after any time. Like you said, it's 2 hours away. So where is Janesville from Eau Claire and kind of located geographically in general?
Yes, Janesville's about 25 miles from the Illinois border. We're about an hour and a half from Chicago and 45 minutes from Madison and Milwaukee.
Okay.
So there's a lot of options.
Yeah, you're pretty close to a lot of things.
Yes, we are.
So what do folks do when they come to Janesville?
So we're known as Wisconsin's Great Outside. So everything that people love to do outside, we've got it. We've got water. We've got lots of trails, really great trails. We have part of the National Scenic Ice Age Trail in Janesville. And if you're not familiar with that trail, it was formed during the Great Glacier, and it's a very beautiful scenic trail. We have some of it that's better for hiking. A lot of it's paved. Beautiful scenic cutout bluffs that run alongside the Rock River that's in Janesville, and it's very popular.
And you were telling me that you guys have a national water skiing championship team or something in Janesville?
Yes. So this is something that's kind of a throwback, and people are very surprised by, but we do have the world's winningest water ski show team in Janesville, and it's really interesting and fun. They travel all over the world performing, and just recently won their second Guinness World Record for the largest pyramid. And 82 people.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. So they perform twice weekly, Memorial Day through Labor Day in Janesville, and those performances are free for anyone to come watch, and that's kind of their practice time for when they go to the tournaments. It's a lot of fun, different theme every year. This year was the Flintstones. They had a Flintstone mobile, and Dino was there.
Okay.
So lots of fun.
So obviously there's lots of activity on the river. You can, of course, do some water skiing. Yes. You can do some fishing and, of course, swimming. And I'm sure you guys do inner tubing on the river there, too.
Yep, there's tubing in the area. There's a lot of kayaking, a lot of bird watching going on. We have a lot of wildlife in the area, a lot of bald eagles and deer. Just recently someone spotted a great horned owl along the trail. Lots of beauty in the area. So.
And where will we stay in town in Janesville?
Yeah, you can stay. We have hotels near the interstate and in the downtown area. There's a beautiful brand new hotel. There's also a couple of bed and breakfasts. So there's lots of options. There's anything from camping to a nice hotel or bed and breakfast.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Thank you for being such a supporter of TBEX, and I'm so happy we finally got to meet in person after we commiserated so many times on the phone.
Yes, thank you so much. I love the conference, and I'm so grateful to finally meet you as well.
Thank you, Susan.
Yes, thank you.
That was this week's episode, and TBEX Thailand, it's happening. It's happening tomorrow. Starting tonight, and it's going to be exciting.
If you're not in Phuket now, I don't know if you're that close to be able to fly in and be here tomorrow, but if not, you can listen for interviews on the podcast, and you can get the virtual ticket after, because we'll be recording all the sessions from TBEX Asia in Phuket.
And we still have 3 more episodes recorded at TBEX Lafayette, so those are coming up in the next 3 weeks. But then after that, we're gonna have interviews that we're gonna be recording starting tomorrow here in Thailand.
Woohoo! Looking forward to it.
Great, Rick. A pleasure as always. See ya.
Thanks, Palle.
This episode of Travel Matters was hosted by TBEX CEO Rick Calvert and Radio Vagabond Palle Bo, and produced by radioguru.co.uk. See more about upcoming TBEX events on tbexcon.com. You can follow Palle Bo on theradiovagabond.com.